I say only let the stars on stage. I mean,
No, you just don't want to be anywhere
well,
near us.
that's true. Well, you told me not to get near you. I want to say to everybody, you're really with two legends here today. So while we have them, let's ask a few questions. But I want to start with since we just watched Top Secret, we'll be watching Airplane. Let's talk about the creation of Top Secret and how that came about right after Airplane, and if there was ever any serious discussion about doing an Airplane 2 with you involved.
Well, let's start with the Airplane 2. We actually did have an interest in doing it, but what we wanted to do is do Airplane 2, The Godfather, and do a spoof on mafia films and have Bob and Julie, you know, be like Al Pacino and Diane Keaton, that he's, you know, he's a hero, he's just come home, there's a big wedding and stuff, and then we would have Robert Stack and Lloyd Bridges and all those, Leslie Nielsen be, you know, the family. and we had this great idea that it would be the airplane hanging by strings, you know, like the Godfather poster. And Paramount, Eisner and Katzenberg thought it was a terrific idea, but apparently Francis Coppola did not, and that was the end.
He wanted to do Godfather 3.
Yeah.
So, I mean, as things turned out, everybody would have been better off if we had Airplane 2. So, and yeah, it's Francis he's really the greatest. I mean, he and Spielberg are the greatest American directors. But you know,
And Jim Cameron.
Jim Cameron, you know, you could add other people to that too. But you know,
Capra was good.
yeah, but nobody bats 1,000. So you know, Godfather 3. I mean, you can't unsee it. I showed my son once, and I didn't. Anyways, let's not be negative, Jerry.
Yeah.
Always put negative.
Yeah, people work very hard.
So talk a little bit about then pivoting towards doing Top Secret and how that came about.
Well, we had no idea what to do, but we did like World War II spy movies and Elvis movies. So we put them together.
It seems so logical.
Yeah, it was. And cast Val Kilmer, who we knew would be famous later. So, but this was his first movie. So,
And talk a little bit about working with him and what that experience was like.
he was great. I mean, you know, he was a little moody, and so we couldn't really figure out why. And then decades later, we figured out, well, you know, we neglected to write a character for him. So he was this rock and roll star, and we didn't know what we were doing until Naked Gun. So, because for Airplane, we had this screenplay written by Arthur Haley, who did the airport movies. And we just copied 0 Hour, which had a whole 3-act character arc, a whole thing built in. It was, and 0 Hour was done in 1957, and we happened to discover it, which was one of the luckiest things that we ever had. So,
And I know one of the questions you get asked a lot, so I'll ask it also. What about having 3 people direct a film? How does that kind of work itself?
Well, it's not really such a big deal. We just go to all of us to get together, and then we work it out, and we go to the set.
Why do I feel I was set up for that one?
thank you, Brad.
Do talk a little bit about having come from the Kentucky Fried Theater group and creating sketches and then moving that into film and the writing process. Kind of just give a little bit of behind the scenes on that.
Well, we came to LA in 1972. We started our theater, it was called Kentucky Fried Theater, and we started that in Madison, Wisconsin, where we went to school. We graduated from there, and we moved the show out here, and we had no ad budget, so you know, we did a show called My Nose, And so we called it that because, so our LA Times weekly listing read, "My nose runs continuously." So, that's passed for humor in the early 70s. And the show, we did 3 shows. We did My Nose, we did a show called Vegetables, calling it for no particular reason. And then finally, we were so tired of it, we called our 3rd show Beating a Dead Horse. And finally, during that time, we wrote Kentucky Fried Movie.
And then what about Airplane? Talk a little bit about the initial idea for that, how the 3 of you, along with Jim, kind of came up with it, and what kind of pushback you got from studios or people that didn't quite get what you were going to do.
A lot of people actually didn't quite get what we wanted to do, but we actually what happened is we had this videotape recorder because we would film video bits as part of the show, and we used to set it up at night to like automatically turn on so we could record all the late night commercials, which were frequently the funniest. And one night we were looking at the tape to see what was, what commercials we had gotten, and we kind of became transfixed by this movie between the commercials called 0 Hour. And so the more it was a perfect movie because I mean, you could teach structure from it. It was perfectly structured, and it was, of course, corny. You make a lot of fun out of it, but it was actually a good story. We would get engrossed in it, when we watched it and want to know who's going to land the plane and the love story, and so we just said this would make a great comedy.
Well, I think our first idea, and what we usually would do with these deadly serious movies, we would redub them. And so I think our first instinct, well, this would be a great thing, we could redub all the voices and make it silly. And then it quickly became, well, why don't we just remake it with serious actors? And that was kind of a breakthrough for us.
And when was the first time you watched Airplane with an audience?
It was a disaster.
Yeah, a terrible disaster. It was on the Paramount lot, our first test screening, and they didn't recruit enough people, and they didn't recruit the right people, and you have to tell them something about what they're going to see. They just pulled people off of the lines waiting to see Laverne and Shirley, and stuff, and it was pretty deadly except for one guy was cackling throughout, and we ended up editing it to that one guy.
Yeah, if that one guy laughed, we kept it in.
I wish we had found out who that was.
I wish he was here tonight with us. I mean, I think
Here
it would
he is
be.
now. And then finally we had it recut, and we showed the picture at University of California, Davis. And that was really the first time that we knew, well, this is gonna work. So, and they laughed all the way through.
And what about the actors you were working with at that point in time? Did everybody there get it? Were there people there that, like Robert Stack, or anybody that just, I don't know exactly what you guys are doing?
It was it varied. Leslie Nielsen later said, I would have paid them to be in this. I mean, he always, he used to have this little fart machine, and he would love, when he was wearing a coat and tie, to go into an elevator or whatever and do this thing. And actually on the set then, he would make this farting sound and then go, Julie.
And pretty soon everybody on the crew had them because Leslie was selling them to everybody. and the assistant director had to ban them from the set because it was.
That's all you heard was.
And now, Peter Graves was a different story. we wanted him because, we had seen him on Mission Impossible, the TV show, and Fury, and he just also seemed like he had no sense of humor. And he read the script, and he was just disgusted. He threw as he recounted later, he threw it across the room. He said, "This is the worst piece of trash I've ever read." And it may have been because he probably read his own part, as a lot of actors do, and he appeared to be playing a funny pedophile. So
I don't know why he would think that.
So he passed on it, but our executive producer, Howard Koch, who was an old friend of all these actors, called him and said, "Peter, why don't you just come in and meet the boys," as we were called at the time. And I think, he was expecting, 3 drugged out maniacs. And so we were quite preppy, only a few years out of Wisconsin. So I think we told him, "Peter, you are the joke." And we convinced him that this would be okay. And as he says in our book, he said, "Well, as an actor, you want to stretch it." So he said this would be a stretch.
I think his family also, his wife
family,
and
that's
kids
right.
also said, "You got to do this. It's actually really funny." But Peter was great. In for a penny, in for a pound, whatever we needed. Lloyd Bridges. Let me just Stack first. Stack got it and knew he was the stooge. In other words, Leslie was desperate to be a comedian. That's really always wanted. And so he felt that's what he was doing, but he got it. But Stack, there was one reading where Lloyd Bridges, who didn't really quite get it, was saying, "Well, why would my character say this?" And Stack just said, "Lloyd, there's a spear going in the wall behind me, and there's a watermelon falling in the desk in front of you. Just keep talking, Lloyd. No one's looking at us."
And that worked. And then he was good in the rest of Airplane, and then he was even better in Hot Shots. By the time
But you can see, I think, looking back, I think it makes a nice texture, so I think Lloyd is actually perfect. But if you look at his performance, you could see that he's just trying a bit to be funny. And we
wanted it just no difference from if he were in a serious movie.
Yeah.
And so we told the actors, forget you're in a comedy. Don't try to be funny.
I'm going to open it up to some questions in the audience. Does anybody have anything they'd like to ask? Okay. I'm gonna go to this guy because he's easy to get to, but I'll make my way over there.
I was wondering if you could tell us about Omar Sharif and how that came about, and was he a fan of Airplane, and how was he on set?
Oh, Omar was great. Yeah, he was. I just remember he was game to do anything, and he wanted to be in a comedy. Everybody wants to be in a comedy, evidently. But the one thing I remember, so we were so in awe of Omar Sharif, and so we planned a huge dinner party for him. We invited all our friends and a lot of the cast. It was all in honor of Omar Sharif.
And what great wine.
Great wine,
He's
because he
into
knew
wine.
it wasn't our cheap wine that we had. But, and so we had it at, the night arrives and everybody's there, and like an hour passes and no Omar, and then another hour passed, no Omar. He never showed up. So, yeah.
But he said, no, but later, someone told us that in Egypt, it's impolite to say no when someone offers you something, whether it's a dinner invitation or some food on your plate. You can be allergic to nuts, and in Egypt, would you like some nuts? Sure. And you take them, you just don't eat them. And that's kind of, and we just didn't understand that.
And since then, we've given a lot of parties, and a lot of people didn't want to go to them, and they just said, no, we're not going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But he was great. He was great.
Wonderful guy.
He's such a treat to work with him. I mean,
I wanted to ask, what was the editing process like? Did you have things that on the page were funny, and you shot them that were funny, and you put it together, because there's so many great jokes and gags throughout your career, and I can see that, does everything land?
No, we always preview a movie about 20 minutes longer than it ends up to be. With this kind of satire, they all end up at barely 90 minutes, and including credits.
80 minutes, really. I mean, yeah. Well, my movies are shorter.
87, I think, was Airplane, and I don't know what Top Secret is, but
An Airplane could have been shorter.
yeah, probably.
But yeah, we have done a director's cut of Airplane, and most director's cuts are 20 minutes longer. Ours is 5 minutes shorter.
Go ahead. Go ahead. You don't need no microphone. This guy's loud. I can already tell. Go ahead.
So, I was actually talking with this on the way here, but
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
why is it this movie, why is your movies are the ones that always stand out? I mean, we've seen so many others in terms of like scary movie, funny, but not like, not like other movies. Why yours? What makes, and also why haven't you seen something like that in forever? I mean, even scary movies is like 15 years ago.
Well, you're obviously a genius. I think, here's the thing. We kind of invented this form of satire, and it's, for some reason, I mean, it's just out there. We talk all about it, what the secret sauce is in the book, but nobody was really willing to go that far. And David just said that we told the actors, don't play it straight, pretend that you don't know you're in a comedy. But for actors and directors, you're on the set and it's funny, it's a comedy, and it's really hard to...
No matter how zany and crazy it is, there's a lot of discipline involved.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so we evolved 15 rules, and it's mostly stuff not to do, so...
But really, I think, there are a lot of things. It was just, I don't know, the three of us, we miss Jim desperately. He was brilliant.
Most of all, he gave us a vowel, so otherwise we would have been...
But that was his greatest contribution.
And he typed,
Yeah, no, he was just brilliantly funny and really treaded the line, and he's also just a great guy. But we had a really good thing together, the three of us. We would laugh a lot. We would argue about stuff too, but we totally trusted each other. So if two people thought something was funny or not funny, that would win.
It's great to have three because it's 2 out of 3.
Yeah, right, exactly. We always had a decision, but for me, it all comes back to the idea of just with the actors, the costumes. I think it's got to be straight. It's got to be you've got to create that feel. That's one reason why Michael Eisner. We originally wrote this for a prop plane, to be shot on a prop plane, and Eisner smartly, wisely said, no, if you're going to do it at Paramount, it's got to be a jet plane. But yet the sound of the engines is a prop sound. But we did that not as a joke for him or anybody. That sound, that old, and we always kept coming back to the drama and just begging the actors to, or insisting that they ignore the fun of being in a comedy.
And studios generally get a bad rap. When we were at Paramount, and this is many years ago, it was an all-star team of executives. They actually made the movie better. They took us through a rewrite, and they assigned a guy to us and helped us with the characters and to develop those characters. And that it made the movie a lot better. And I don't think studios do that today, or even know what they're doing. I mean, there's gonna be a Naked Gun 4, so, and what can I say about it is, I don't wanna say anything bad, but it's gonna be horrible.
I was kind of wondering when we'd get to that. Let's expand on that a little bit. Have you, either of you seen it? How did it come about? Were you involved at all?
Well, I wrote a script to Naked Gun 4 with my writing partners, Pat Proft and Mike McManus. And it was a great script, and Paramount loved it. I mean, until they didn't love it. Seth MacFarlane came in, and he does Family Guy and Ted and all this stuff. And he thought he knew better, and he brought in Liam Neeson, who, interesting, his idea is to replace Leslie Nielsen, and our idea was not to replace Leslie Nielsen. You can't. It's always gonna be second best. And just like at the end of Airplane, we didn't want to do another comedy on an airplane. And so we wanted to make it The Godfather. So Pat and Mike and I had an idea. We were gonna have it'd be the son of Leslie Nielsen, a 30-something young character, would have been Andy Samberg. And it would have been a spoof on Mission Impossible, Bond, Bourne Identity, a international spy thriller. And it was a great, it would have renewed the franchise and started it all over again with a young actor and, not copying the same thing. But this Naked Gun, I've seen some of the trailer. I tried not to see it, but sometimes it just comes up on Instagram, and they're doing some stupid pun. Like Pam Anderson comes in and Liam Neeson says, "Take a chair," and she takes the chair. It's like, you can't, it's such bad stuff. Again, you can't unsee this stuff. I always thought I don't want to see the movie. It'll be like Two Girls, One Cup. You can't unsee this crap. So I've been doing a lot of press and just, trying to get the word out, but what can you, but I've written, so we repurposed our Naked Gun script. It's called Counterintelligence, spelled with one L and a J. And so we're gonna, but that's like a $30 million budget. We also have a wonderful script that we finished, which is a film noir comedy, which is called The Star of Malta. And that's, much lower budget. So we're hoping to get into pre-production on that soon. But it's original. We always want to do something original. And that's the main thing, and not paint by the numbers.
I have a young man over here who has a question.
How long did it take to make Top Secret?
The shooting was probably 3 months.
3 months.
Yeah,
scheduled.
3
We were
months
in-
to shoot it.
We were in London for
Yeah.
7
But,
months.
well, it takes, we spent a year writing it, and then 3 months of preparation, or was it maybe more than that, and then another 6 months or more editing and post-production. So the whole thing takes quite a while, but the actual shooting was just about maybe 80 days or something.
And are gags constantly being added once you get on set, or are there things just constantly being added to the script?
Very rarely, we make sure the script is, we spend a year on the script, and occasionally something is changed on the set, but that's only because once you get on the set, it's problem solving, and if something doesn't work in a rehearsal, we try to cut, sentences and then words, and you experiment, but there's no gags added, except we can remember when we added gags in Airplane, when they're all shaking the woman, and this actress said, "Why don't you have them slap me?" And so we said, "Well, okay," and so they did, and that was funny, and then
And then she kept saying, harder, harder.
So we were in a couple of takes, just, you know. Anyway, so, and then somebody.
The cinematographer really gave her a good
Yeah,
laugh.
well, so we came up with an idea, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if it was Artie or somebody said, how about having a line of people, you know, with whips, chains, guns, baseball bats, and that's how, so that was added to the script.
But that was one of the few things.
We remember that, yeah.
Because we're not, you know, the last thing we want to do is getting into improv and having the actors just feel the freedom to try to, you know, wing it or come up with something funny, because a lot of times you laugh at those jokes because they're spontaneous and they're funny, but they don't necessarily last, you know, and certainly they don't last as long as the jokes that have already been in the script for months and months or a year or whatever.
Yeah, first of all, I want to say thanks for being the best bosses I've ever had in my life. Bob Skier, I was research assistant. Yeah.
We're sorry about, we had to fire you, but.
Yeah, well, you know, it happens.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good.
Good.
I wanted to ask if you could tell the folks here, because it's a great story, where the idea for Skeet Surf and Safari came from.
Well, we were doing foreign press for Airplane, and you know, after a while it just gets boring. It's the same questions over and over, and so to get ourselves a little more like stimulated, we had a contest to see who could get the biggest lie in print. And so, you know, that was then creative and we had fun. And one of the things someone just asked us, what are the current crazes in California? And so we mentioned skeet surfing, and we said, you know, what's that? Well, they go out in the ocean on a surfboard, but with a gun, and they fire it, and they try to hit it, and I'm thinking, okay, this guy's just gonna laugh. And there was a beat, and he said, how do they keep the guns dry? So I guess we bought it. So and then at some point we thought, hey, maybe that would be fun in the movie.
Since you talked a little bit about Naked Gun, I wanted to ask about working with O.J. Simpson. What was that like?
You know, I really don't want to talk about that. I'll say this. The last time I saw him was the wrap party for Naked Gun 33 1/3. We shook hands, I said goodbye, sold him my knife collection, and that was that was the end of it.
Understood.
Actually, OJ's acting was a lot like his murdering. He got away with it, but nobody believed him.
I think on that note, we're probably doing this. The brothers have agreed to meet you outside, sell you one of their books, and then they'll sign it for you. So you really should do that. And if you have anything else, they'll also be happy to sign that, your forehead or whatever.
And don't forget to turn your mic off, Dave.
Yes,
That's right,
exactly.
when I go to the restroom.
Thank them again so much.